This book is over 650 pages, and you'll learn all the key concepts in just a few minutes. The 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene is a powerful guide to mastering conflict and achieving success in life, work, and relationships by applying timeless strategies from history, military tactics, and human psychology. Let's have a productive life. Strategy 1. Declare war on your enemies. The polarity strategy. Robert Greene introduces this concept with a simple but powerful truth. Life is a battlefield. If you want to succeed, you need to clearly define who or what you're fighting against. Enemies, whether external or internal, can actually serve a purpose. Greene writes, "Your enemies can fill you with purpose and direction. Without identifying an opposition, we risk drifting aimlessly, unfocused, and ineffective." Think about this in practical terms. Your enemy doesn't always have to be a person. It could be a bad habit, a toxic environment, or even self-doubt. The key is to recognize the patterns of hostility or resistance that threaten your progress. For example, if procrastination is your enemy, treat it as a tangible opponent that you must outsmart and overcome. To implement this strategy, start by analyzing your environment. Ask yourself, what is holding me back? Who or what is working against my goals? Use the conflict as a source of motivation to clarify your objectives and energize your efforts. Just remember, not every fight is worth your time. Focus on significant threats rather than getting caught up in minor skirmishes. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Strategy 2. Do not fight the last war. The guerrilla war of the mind strategy. Greene emphasizes that one of the biggest mistakes we can make is clinging to past successes or outdated approaches. He writes, "What most often weighs you down and brings you misery is the past. The world is constantly changing, and so must we if we want to thrive." Imagine a business owner who refuses to adopt digital tools because their old methods worked just fine in the past. Over time, they'll find themselves outpaced by competitors who embrace innovation. Similarly, in personal life, relying on old solutions for new challenges can leave you stuck and frustrated. Greene encourages us to think like guerrilla warriors, constantly shifting our tactics and staying flexible. To apply this, make it a habit to regularly evaluate your strategies. Are they still relevant? If not, challenge your assumptions and explore fresh perspectives. For instance, if you're struggling with productivity, don't assume the same old time management techniques will work. Try new tools or routines. Embrace change as an ally, not an enemy, and stay fluid in your approach to life's battles. Strategy 3. Amidst the turmoil of events, do not lose your presence of mind. The counterbalance strategy. Next, let's talk about staying calm under pressure. This is a strategy that focuses on composure. Greene states, "In the heat of battle, the mind tends to lose its balance. The key to navigating crises is training yourself to maintain emotional and mental control, even in chaos." Think about situations where stress overtakes your ability to think clearly. Maybe it's a tense meeting, an argument, or an unexpected setback. When emotions run high, rash decisions often follow. Greene advises making the mind tougher by exposing it to adversity and learning to detach from the chaos. It's not about ignoring the storm, but about finding your center within it. To strengthen this skill, try mindfulness techniques like deep breathing or meditation. Simulate high-stress scenarios in practice. Public speakers, for instance, often rehearse with distractions to prepare for unpredictable situations. Finally, develop the habit of pausing before reacting. Take a moment to reflect before you respond, and you'll find that your actions carry far more weight and precision. Strategy 4. Create a sense of urgency and desperation. The death ground strategy. This is all about harnessing urgency and desperation to push yourself to extraordinary heights. Greene describes this concept with stark clarity. You are your own worst enemy. Too often we cling to safety nets, and this leads to complacency. But when you're placed on what Greene calls death ground, where retreat isn't an option, something incredible happens. Your instincts kick in, your focus sharpens, and your determination skyrockets. It's about creating conditions where failure simply isn't an option. Think of historical moments like Hernán Cortés burning his ships upon reaching the New World. His men knew there was no turning back, so their only option was to fight with everything they had. On a smaller scale, this could look like setting a non-negotiable deadline for a project or removing distractions, so there's no alternative but to succeed. Greene writes, "Place yourself on death ground, where your back is against the wall and you have to fight like hell to get out alive." To implement this, identify areas in your life where you've allowed complacency to settle in. Are there goals you've been putting off because there's no urgency? Create compelling deadlines and reduce your safety nets. For example, if you've always wanted to start your own business, consider quitting your job to create a real sense of necessity. High-stakes challenges, while intimidating, can push you into a zone of heightened creativity and resourcefulness. Strategy 5. Avoid the snares of groupthink, the command and control strategy. Now let's move on to a strategy that focuses on leadership. Greene points out the dangers of groupthink, where the desire for consensus can stifle creativity and critical thinking. He writes, "Create a chain of command in which they do not feel constrained by your influence yet follow your lead." In other words, a strong leader strikes a balance between allowing diverse perspectives and maintaining decisive control. Think of a team meeting where everyone is hesitant to challenge the dominant opinion. Sure, decisions get made quickly, but they're often uninspired and ineffective. Groupthink is especially dangerous in high-stakes environments, where poor decisions can lead to disaster. Greene cautions against falling into the irrationality of collective decision-making. Great leaders encourage constructive dissent, knowing that differing viewpoints are the seeds of innovation. So how do you put this into practice? Start by fostering open dialogue within your teams. Encourage people to voice differing opinions, even if they challenge the norm. At the same time, establish clear roles and responsibilities so decision-making doesn't devolve into chaos. For example, in a brainstorming session, you could ask team members to deliberately play the role of devil's advocate to surface alternative viewpoints. Remain vigilant for signs of conformity and always be prepared to challenge the status quo. Strategy 6. Segment your forces, the controlled chaos strategy. This is about dividing your forces to maximize speed and adaptability. Greene writes, "Break your forces into independent groups that can operate on their own." This strategy is particularly effective in unpredictable or fast-moving situations. Smaller autonomous teams are nimbler, more innovative, and better equipped to respond to sudden changes than a centralized structure. A great example of this is how modern tech companies operate. Many divide their workforce into small, self-contained units, each focused on a specific goal or product. This allows them to innovate rapidly and adjust to market changes without waiting for instructions from the top. Greene emphasizes that these teams should be infused with the spirit of the campaign, meaning they understand the overarching mission but have the freedom to execute it in their own way. To apply this, start by clearly defining objectives for smaller teams or individuals within your organization. Give them the autonomy to make decisions, but ensure they understand how their work fits into the bigger picture. Regularly reassess and reorganize these groups to keep them optimized for current challenges. For example, if you're managing a project, consider breaking it into smaller milestones and assigning these to dedicated teams. Trust them to innovate, and you'll likely see faster, more effective results. Strategy 7. Transform your war into a crusade. Morale strategies. This strategy is about inspiring others by connecting their efforts to something greater than themselves. Greene highlights that people are motivated when they feel part of a mission that transcends individual gain. He writes, "The secret to motivating people is to get them to think less about themselves and more about the group. When individuals see their survival or success tied to the larger collective, their dedication and resilience grow." Consider how historical leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. used this principle. By framing the civil rights movement as a moral crusade for justice, he united diverse groups under a shared vision of equality. Similarly, in a team or organizational setting, you can rally people by showing how their work contributes to a broader purpose. Greene explains, "Make them see their survival as tied to the success of the army as a whole." When individuals believe they are essential to the group's triumph, their commitment intensifies. To apply this, Start by framing team or personal goals within the context of a larger mission. For example, if you're leading a team at work, communicate how their efforts impact the organization's overall success or the community. Regularly highlight and celebrate collective victories to reinforce this shared purpose. Remember, when people feel their efforts have meaning beyond themselves, they bring more passion and persistence to the table. Strategy 8. Pick your battles. Carefully, the perfect economy strategy. Greene reminds us that not all conflicts are worth fighting. He writes, "Consider the hidden costs of a war: time lost, political goodwill squandered, an embittered enemy bent on revenge. Engaging in every battle can drain your resources, time, and energy. Strategic restraint is often the key to long-term success." Think about a chess player who evaluates each move carefully, weighing the risks and rewards before committing. They understand that impulsive actions might provide short-term satisfaction, but can jeopardize their strategy in the long run. Greene emphasizes the power of waiting, observing, and sometimes undermining opponents indirectly rather than engaging head-on. He notes, "Sometimes it is better to wait, to undermine your enemies covertly rather than hitting them straight on." To put this into action, take time to evaluate the stakes of any conflict or challenge. Ask yourself, will this battle advance my long-term goals? Are the rewards worth the risks? If not, explore alternative approaches. For example, instead of confronting a difficult colleague directly, you might work to align with allies or resolve issues behind the scenes. Learn to conserve your energy for battles that truly matter, and you'll be far more effective. Strategy 9. Turn the tables. The counterattack strategy. Greene argues that reacting strategically rather than impulsively can often provide a decisive advantage. He writes, "Discover the power of holding back and letting the other side move first. By waiting for your opponent to make the first move, you gain the opportunity to exploit their weaknesses or mistakes." Imagine a boxer in the ring studying their opponent's rhythm and strikes. Instead of attacking recklessly, they bide their time, waiting for an opening to deliver a calculated counterpunch. Greene explains that baiting an aggressive opponent can provoke them into overextending themselves, leaving them vulnerable. He writes, "If your opponents are aggressive, bait them into a rash attack that will leave them in a weak position." To implement this strategy, start by observing your adversaries closely. Study their patterns and look for signs of overconfidence or haste. Use subtle provocations to lure them into making premature moves, then respond with precision. For instance, if you're in a negotiation, let the other party reveal their position first, allowing you to tailor your counteroffer to their weaknesses. Maintain flexibility throughout the process, adapting to the shifting dynamics of the situation. A well-timed counterattack can turn the tide of any conflict in your favor. Strategy 10. Create a threatening presence. Deterrence strategies. The idea here is not to engage in constant battles, but to project an aura of strength and unpredictability that deters potential aggressors. Greene states, "The best way to fight off aggressors is to keep them from attacking you in the first place. By cultivating a reputation for resilience and retaliation, you prevent conflicts from arising in the first place." Think about how animals in the wild use deterrence, like a puffed-up bird or a growling dog. They don't want to fight, they want to discourage others from attacking. For people, this could mean projecting confidence in your abilities or making it clear that any attempt to harm you would be costly. Greene also emphasizes the value of unpredictability, writing, "Uncertainty is sometimes better than overt threat." When others can't anticipate your limits or intentions, they're less likely to provoke you. To use this strategy in your life, start by building a reputation for being capable and unshakable. This doesn't mean being aggressive, it means showing strength through your actions and demeanor. Use ambiguity to keep others guessing about your full capabilities, and avoid unnecessary confrontations by projecting readiness. For instance, in a negotiation, you don't need to make loud threats. A calm, confident stance can be far more intimidating. This approach reduces the need for direct conflict while maintaining authority. Strategy 11. Trade space for time. The non-engagement strategy. Greene argues that stepping back in the face of overwhelming opposition isn't a sign of weakness, it's often a sign of strength. He writes, "Retreat in the face of a strong enemy is a sign not of weakness, but of strength. Sometimes doing nothing or withdrawing temporarily can give you the space to regroup and gain a strategic advantage. Imagine a chess game where you sacrifice a piece to protect your king and set up a stronger position. Retreating or delaying action allows you to conserve your resources and assess your opponent's moves. Greene points out, sometimes you can accomplish most by doing nothing. This is about being patient and knowing that time can work in your favor. In practice, this strategy is especially useful when you're faced with a challenge that seems insurmountable in the moment. Instead of engaging impulsively, take a step back to reassess your options. For example, if a work project becomes chaotic and unmanageable, pausing to reorganize your approach can lead to better results. Learn to recognize when stepping away is the wisest move, and wait for the right moment to act. By conserving your energy and resources, you can return to the battlefield stronger and more prepared. Strategy 12. Lose battles, but win the war. Grand strategy. This strategy is about focusing on your long-term objectives rather than getting caught up in short-term wins or losses. Greene reminds us, let others get caught up in the twists and turns of the battle, relishing their little victories. Minor setbacks are often necessary stepping stones to achieve your ultimate goals. Consider historical examples like Abraham Lincoln, who endured political defeats and personal failures on his path to the presidency. He understood that those temporary losses were part of a larger journey toward uniting the nation. Greene explains that a well-planned grand strategy allows you to sacrifice immediate gains for long-term success, writing, "Grand strategy will bring you the ultimate reward, the last laugh." To apply this, start by clearly defining your ultimate goals. Ask yourself, what am I working toward, and how do today's challenges fit into that vision? Be willing to let go of smaller battles that don't align with your larger objectives. For example, in a competitive work environment, don't focus on outshining a colleague in every meeting. Focus on building a reputation that supports your broader career aspirations. Regularly reassess your progress and adjust your strategies to ensure you stay on course for the last laugh. Strategy 13. Know your enemy. The intelligence strategy. Success in any conflict, whether it's professional, personal, or on a larger scale, depends on knowledge. Greene emphasizes this point by stating, your enemy is not your opponent, but the unknown. When we don't understand our opponent's intentions, strengths, or weaknesses, we're essentially fighting blind. Effective intelligence gathering allows us to make informed decisions, minimizing risks and maximizing our chances of success. Think of this in terms of chess. A skilled player doesn't just focus on their own pieces. They study their opponent's moves, tendencies, and strategy. Greene highlights this with the advice to understand their minds, their habits, their weaknesses, and their strengths. By doing so, you can anticipate their actions and outmaneuver them effectively. In your life, this might mean dedicating time to researching a competitor in your field, observing their strategies, and identifying opportunities to differentiate yourself. Analyze patterns in behavior to predict future actions. Whether you're dealing with a rival at work or negotiating a deal, use the intelligence you gather to craft strategies tailored to your specific situation. In essence, knowledge is your most powerful weapon in neutralizing threats. Strategy 14. Overwhelm resistance with speed and suddenness. The Blitzkrieg strategy. Greene draws from historical examples, such as the German Blitzkrieg in World War II, to illustrate the power of rapid, decisive action. He writes, speed and suddenness will make you seem larger than life. The key here is to act quickly and decisively, overwhelming your opponent before they have a chance to respond. Momentum and surprise are critical elements of this strategy. Picture a basketball game where a team executes a fast break, catching their opponents off guard. The defense scrambles to keep up, often making mistakes in the process. Greene explains, a fast attack paralyzes the enemy and leaves them unable to respond effectively. The psychological impact of being caught off guard is often as powerful as the physical consequences of the attack itself. To apply this strategy, train yourself to make quick, confident decisions. Hesitation can be costly, especially in high-pressure situations. Incorporate surprise into your plans. whether that means introducing an unexpected proposal during a meeting or seizing an opportunity your competition hasn't noticed. When you act swiftly and decisively, you create a ripple effect that disorients your opposition and strengthens your position. Strategy 15. Control the dynamic. Forcing strategies. Greene emphasizes the importance of taking the lead and shaping the terms of engagement in any conflict. He writes, "Make others play by your rules and react to your moves." When you dictate the pace and nature of the interaction, you maintain a position of dominance and force others to respond to your actions rather than initiating their own. This strategy is about being proactive. Think of a skilled debater who sets the tone of the discussion, steering it toward topics where they excel and away from areas of weakness. Greene adds, "By controlling the dynamic, you keep your opponents on the defensive. When you're the one driving the action, your opponents are too busy reacting to take control themselves." To put this into practice, start by setting clear goals for yourself. Define what you want to achieve and establish the rules of engagement that work in your favor. Anticipate your opponent's responses and plan your moves accordingly. For example, if you're negotiating a contract, propose terms early that align with your strengths, forcing the other party to negotiate within your framework. Stay one step ahead by continuously reassessing the situation and adjusting your tactics to maintain control. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Strategy 16, hit them where it hurts. The center of gravity strategy. This strategy is all about focusing your energy on the most critical vulnerability of your opponent. Greene describes this concept with precision. Find the center of gravity and concentrate your forces there. This means identifying the single point that holds the greatest significance for your opponent's strength or success and delivering a decisive blow. Unlike scattering your efforts across many fronts, this strategy simplifies the path to victory. Think of a boxer who doesn't waste energy throwing punches randomly, but focuses on targeting their opponent's weak spots, like a vulnerable chin or a fatigued arm. Greene reminds us, a single blow to the heart can be more effective than 100 minor attacks. By striking at the central element that sustains your opponent, you can disrupt their entire structure and leave them unable to recover. In practice, start by identifying your opponent's core strength or biggest weakness. Is it their over-reliance on one resource? Their dependence on a single ally? Avoid spreading your resources too thin. This only dilutes your power. Instead, stay disciplined and direct your efforts toward the area that will yield the greatest impact. Whether you're negotiating, competing in business, or navigating interpersonal conflict, a well-aimed strike at the center of gravity can make all the difference. Strategy 17. Defeat them in detail. The divide and conquer strategy. This strategy is built on the principle of breaking down a larger force into smaller, more manageable pieces. Greene advises, divide your enemy into smaller pieces to make them more vulnerable. By isolating individual elements, you prevent your opponents from leveraging their collective strength. This makes each target weaker and easier to neutralize. The classic example of divide and conquer comes from military history, where generals would maneuver to separate enemy troops and defeat them one by one. Greene expands on this with the warning to avoid the danger of confronting them as a unified force. Facing a well-organized coalition can be overwhelming, but fragmentation turns the tide in your favor. To implement this in your own life, look for ways to isolate your challenges or opponents. If you're dealing with workplace politics, for instance, focus on addressing individual influencers rather than trying to tackle an entire opposing group at once. Address challenges incrementally, one at a time, to avoid becoming overwhelmed. Finally, be vigilant in preventing alliances from forming against you. Fragmentation is your ally in keeping larger threats at bay. Strategy 18. Expose and attack. Your opponent's soft flank, the turning strategy. This approach revolves around identifying and exploiting overlooked weaknesses. Greene emphasizes, a flank is often the most vulnerable part of an army. By striking where your opponent least expects it, you can destabilize even their strongest defenses. Imagine playing a soccer match and noticing that one side of the opposing team's defense is weaker or slower. Attacking that side repeatedly gives you a clear path to score. Similarly, Greene advises us to strike where they least expect it, and their defenses will crumble. The key is to focus on areas that are underdefended or underestimated. To apply this strategy, start by analyzing your opponent's defenses. Where are they overconfident? What have they left unguarded? Be unpredictable in your approach to keep them guessing, and use indirect tactics to avoid direct confrontation where they're strongest. For example, if a competitor is dominant in one market but neglecting another, target the neglected area to gain an edge. A well-placed attack on a soft flank often requires less effort but delivers significant results. Strategy 19. Envelop the enemy. The annihilation strategy. This strategy revolves around surrounding your opponent so completely that they have no room to maneuver, no escape routes, and no way to resist. Greene states, the key to victory is to leave the enemy no room to escape. This is about overwhelming your opposition from all sides, ensuring not just defeat, but the inability to retaliate or recover in the future. Historically, this approach was used by military leaders like Hannibal at the Battle of Cannae, where he encircled a larger Roman army, cutting off their escape and securing a decisive victory. Greene explains, an enemy surrounded is an enemy defeated. When there are no options left, resistance collapses, and the battle ends decisively in your favor. In practical terms, this strategy means analyzing how to systematically cut off your adversary's resources and support. Plan actions that work simultaneously, leaving no room for retreat or counterattacks. For instance, in a competitive business scenario, you might target your competitors' key suppliers while also undercutting their pricing in critical markets. Your goal is total dominance, an overwhelming victory that ensures they cannot recover to challenge you again. Strategy 20. Maneuver them into weakness. The fait accompli strategy. Greene highlights that the best victories often come not from direct confrontation, but from subtle positioning. He writes, the best victory is one in which the enemy has no choice but to surrender. This strategy focuses on outmaneuvering your opponent so they're forced into a situation where they must accept unfavorable terms. The key is to create a reality they can't escape, making resistance futile. Think of a chess game where you set up a checkmate in such a way that your opponent realizes there's no move left to save their king. Greene elaborates, maneuvering is about creating opportunities that leave your opponent cornered. By carefully planning your actions, you can win without a costly or prolonged battle. To apply this in your life, create conditions where your adversaries must comply with your goals. This might involve leveraging diplomacy or negotiation to position yourself advantageously. For example, if you're in a workplace conflict, you could offer a solution so practical and beneficial to the organization that your adversary has no choice but to agree. Avoid unnecessary conflict and instead focus on positioning yourself in a way that ensures success with minimal resistance. Strategy 21. Seize the initiative. The blitzkrieg strategy. This strategy emphasizes the power of striking first and dictating the pace of the conflict. Greene writes, the initiative belongs to those who act boldly and decisively. When you make the first move, you disorient your opponents, forcing them to respond to your actions rather than initiating their own. This creates both psychological and tactical advantages. The key here is momentum. Consider how startups often disrupt established industries. They act quickly, launching new products or services before larger competitors can react. Greene explains, a swift attack disorients the enemy and forces them to respond to you. By staying aggressive and proactive, you keep opponents off balance and struggling to keep up. In practice, this strategy means being assertive and proactive in addressing challenges or conflicts. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Act quickly and decisively to seize opportunities as they arise. Use rapid, bold moves to disrupt your opponent's plans, forcing them onto the defensive. For example, if you're negotiating a deal, set the tone by proposing terms first. This frames the conversation around your goals and puts the other party in a reactive position. Maintain your momentum by continually pressing your advantage and staying one step ahead. Strategy 22. Defend, then counterattack. The counteroffensive strategy. Greene emphasizes that a strong defense isn't just about surviving an attack, it's about creating opportunities to strike back with devastating effect. He writes, "A well-timed counterattack can be more devastating than the initial assault. This strategy encourages patience and preparation in the face of aggression. By neutralizing the initial threat, you gain the time and clarity needed to plan a decisive response." Imagine a tennis match where a player defends against a powerful serve, returning the ball strategically to force their opponent into a weak position. Greene highlights that defense provides a critical advantage. Defense gives you the opportunity to assess your opponent's weaknesses. Once you've neutralized the immediate threat, you're in a position to turn the tables and shift the balance of power in your favor. To apply this strategy, focus on building a resilient defense that can withstand initial attacks. For example, in negotiations, listen carefully to your opponent's demands without reacting emotionally, using the opportunity to understand their weaknesses and motivations. Then, strike decisively when the moment is right, crafting a counteroffer or argument that shifts the momentum to your side. A strong defense sets the stage for a powerful counteroffensive that can turn the tide of any conflict. Strategy 23. Mix the dynamic and the static, the balance strategy. Greene writes, "All action must be balanced by thought and consolidation." This strategy advises alternating between aggressive action and moments of rest and reflection. By balancing dynamic and static approaches, you ensure that you're adaptable and stable at the same time. It's about knowing when to push forward and when to step back to reassess. Picture a skilled artist working on a painting. They take bold, dynamic strokes to bring their vision to life, but they also pause to step back, evaluate their work, and make adjustments. Greene explains, "The best generals know when to move and when to hold back. Overcommitting to action without reassessment can lead to exhaustion or mistakes, while too much caution can result in missed opportunities. To use this strategy effectively, plan phases of active engagement followed by deliberate moments of rest and recalibration. For instance, after launching a new initiative at work, take time to evaluate its progress and refine your strategy before expanding further. Avoid overcommitting to one approach without adapting to changing circumstances. Success lies in this balance. Knowing when to strike and when to regroup ensures that your efforts are sustainable and impactful." Strategy 24. Be unpredictable. The strategy of indirect approach. Greene writes, "Predictability is the enemy of victory. When your actions are predictable, your opponents can anticipate and counter them effectively. By adopting an indirect approach and incorporating unexpected tactics, you can disorient and exhaust your adversaries. Consider a football coach who uses a trick play during a high-stakes game. The opposing team, expecting a standard move, is caught completely off guard. Greene explains that unpredictability prevents the enemy from preparing effective countermeasures. An indirect approach disorients and exhausts the enemy. Creativity and adaptability are the cornerstones of this strategy, allowing you to keep your opponents on their toes. To implement this, avoid falling into predictable routines. Instead, incorporate unexpected actions into your plans. For example, if you're competing in a market, launch an unconventional marketing campaign that surprises both customers and competitors. Stay flexible and open to innovative solutions, using creativity as a tool to gain the upper hand. When your opponents can't predict your moves, they'll struggle to formulate an effective response. Strategy 25. Lead from the front, the authority strategy. Leadership, as Greene emphasizes, is most effective when leaders take direct, visible action. He writes, "A leader who fights on the front lines earns the trust of their troops. When leaders actively engage in the challenges faced by their team, they build confidence and loyalty among their followers." This strategy is about embodying the values and behaviors you want to see in others, especially during times of conflict or crisis. Think of historical figures like Alexander the Great, who famously led his soldiers into battle, not from a safe distance, but right at the front lines. His willingness to share in the risks earned him the unwavering loyalty of his troops. Greene reminds us, lead boldly to inspire boldness in others. When leaders show courage and commitment, they inspire the same qualities in their followers. To implement this strategy, be present and active during critical moments. If you're managing a project, don't just delegate tasks. Roll up your sleeves and contribute directly, demonstrating the work ethic you expect. Show your team that you're willing to share the risks and responsibilities. This builds trust, respect, and motivation, creating a culture of confidence and collective effort. Strategy 26. Occupy the moral high ground. The grand cause strategy. This strategy highlights the power of positioning yourself as a champion of a noble cause. Greene states, "The higher the cause, the stronger the support." By aligning your actions with a larger ethical mission, you can inspire others and build momentum. A just cause creates emotional resonance, making people more committed to your success. Think about leaders like Mahatma Gandhi, who used moral authority to rally millions in the fight for Indian independence. His nonviolent resistance was rooted in principles of justice and equality, giving followers a reason to believe in and support his mission. Greene explains, "By aligning yourself with a noble mission, you give others a reason to follow you. When people connect with a higher purpose, they're more likely to unify and work towards shared goals." To apply this strategy, identify causes that resonate with your values and align with your goals. Communicate your mission clearly and passionately to inspire others to join your efforts. For example, if you're launching a business, emphasize how your work contributes to solving a meaningful problem or improving lives. Moral authority not only disarms opponents, but also strengthens alliances, giving you a powerful advantage in any conflict or competition. Strategy 27. Give your opponent a way out. The exit strategy. Greene points out that leaving your adversaries an honorable way to retreat can prevent unnecessary escalation. He writes, "Cornered enemies fight with desperation. When people feel trapped, they often resort to reckless or destructive actions, making conflicts harder to resolve. Providing a dignified escape route allows for a more strategic and peaceful resolution." This idea is evident in military history, where victorious generals sometimes allowed defeated armies to retreat rather than annihilating them. Greene refers to this as a golden bridge of retreat, explaining that such gestures not only minimize resentment, but can also turn adversaries into allies. Showing mercy and tact demonstrates strength and wisdom, while avoiding prolonged or unnecessary battles. To use this strategy in your life, look for solutions that allow adversaries to withdraw without humiliation. For instance, if you're in a workplace disagreement, propose a compromise that acknowledges their contributions while steering the outcome in your favor. Small gestures of goodwill can diffuse tensions and build trust. Focus on long-term stability over short-term victory. This approach often turns conflict into an opportunity for collaboration and mutual respect. Strategy 28. Use the chain reaction strategy. Endgame strategies. This strategy is all about creating momentum. Greene explains that a well-executed plan can trigger a series of favorable outcomes, turning small victories into larger successes. He writes, "Chain reactions are the essence of strategic planning. The goal is to find actions that will produce exponential results, setting off a domino effect that leads to ultimate triumph." Think of how businesses sometimes launch a single successful product that paves the way for future growth. For instance, Apple's iPod not only became a hit on its own, but also laid the foundation for the iPhone and the company's ecosystem of devices. Greene adds, "A single move can set off a domino effect leading to ultimate triumph. By carefully planning each step, you can ensure that one success feeds into the next." To implement this strategy, look for opportunities where small efforts can yield big results. Focus on high-leverage actions that create momentum, like tackling an influential problem that unlocks further possibilities. Always keep your end game in mind, ensuring each move contributes to your ultimate goal. For example, if you're building a career, focus on one project or relationship that could open doors to even greater opportunities. Momentum isn't just a bonus, it's a strategy for sustained success. Strategy 29. Sow uncertainty and confusion in your opponent. The chaos strategy. Greene highlights the value of creating chaos to destabilize your adversaries. He writes, "Confusion is the ally of victory." By disrupting your opponent's ability to think clearly and make decisions, you gain a significant advantage. Uncertainty forces even the most prepared adversaries into poor decisions or complete inaction. A classic example of this strategy comes from warfare, where armies use feints, misinformation, or unpredictable tactics to keep their enemies guessing. Greene explains, a disoriented opponent is easier to defeat. When opponents are uncertain, they expend energy trying to make sense of the situation instead of effectively responding to your moves. To use this strategy, introduce unexpected elements into your opponent's plans. This could mean using misdirection or misinformation to keep them guessing about your intentions. For example, if you're in a competitive environment, float multiple possibilities to your adversaries so they waste time preparing for contingencies that never happen. At the same time, maintain your composure and clarity. This ensures that you can act decisively while your opponent struggles to find their footing. Chaos, when used strategically, can become a powerful tool. Strategy 30. Keep your opponent on their toes. The fluidity strategy. Greene argues that adaptability and constant motion are essential for staying ahead. He writes, "Those who stand still become targets. In a fast-moving environment, static plans and routines make you predictable and vulnerable. Fluidity, on the other hand, ensures that you remain resilient and difficult to pin down. Think of a great athlete who adjusts their game plan in real time based on their opponent's strengths and weaknesses." Greene explains, "Fluidity is the essence of strategic advantage. By continually evolving and responding to changing circumstances, you stay one step ahead of your adversaries. To put this into practice, regularly reassess and adjust your strategies to meet new challenges. Avoid falling into complacency by staying proactive and dynamic. Embrace change not as a disruption, but as an opportunity to innovate and improve. For instance, in your professional life, keep updating your skills and exploring new approaches to problem solving. Fluidity isn't just about survival, it's about thriving in the face of unpredictability." Strategy 31. Stay ahead of the curve. The preemption strategy. This strategy focuses on the importance of anticipating challenges and acting before they have the chance to escalate. Greene writes, "The best defense is a good offense. By being proactive, you can neutralize potential threats early and avoid being caught off guard. Yet preemptive action ensures you remain in control, dictating the terms of engagement rather than reacting to someone else's moves. Think of a chess player who doesn't wait for their opponent to make a move, but instead builds an early position of strength." Greene explains, "By acting first, you dictate the terms of engagement. Waiting too long can allow threats to gain momentum, turning manageable issues into major obstacles. Preemption disrupts your opponent's plans and keeps you one step ahead. To apply this strategy, monitor your environment closely for early warning signs of conflict or challenges. For example, if you sense friction building in a workplace dynamic, address it head-on with clear communication before it spirals into a larger issue. Take decisive action to address potential threats as they arise, using preparation and foresight to maintain a strategic advantage. Staying ahead of the curve isn't just about preventing problems, it's about shaping the future in your favor." Strategy 32. Think as you fight. The counterbalance of planning and improvisation. Greene highlights the delicate balance between meticulous planning and the ability to adapt on the fly. He writes, "Plans are nothing. Planning is everything." While a well-constructed plan provides a framework, real success often depends on how you respond to the unexpected challenges that arise in the moment. Victory, as Greene notes, comes to those who can adapt in the heat of battle. Consider a basketball coach with a game plan that works perfectly until the opposing team changes their strategy. A successful coach adapts, calling audibles and adjusting tactics in real time. In life, the same principle applies. No matter how detailed your plans, unforeseen obstacles will arise, and your ability to improvise will determine your success. To embrace this strategy, prepare as thoroughly as possible, but remain flexible and open to change. Develop your capacity for creative thinking under pressure by practicing problem solving in unpredictable scenarios. For example, try working through hypothetical challenges in your field, imagining how you might respond if a plan goes awry. Balance your preparation with the confidence to make quick, informed decisions in the moment. Success lies in this dynamic interplay between structure and spontaneity. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Strategy 33. Accept the inevitable. The grand perspective strategy. This strategy encourages us to recognize the limits of our control and adapt to larger forces at play. Greene writes, "The wise see the game as it is, not as they wish it to be. By accepting reality as it is, rather than how we hope it might be, we can make better decisions and avoid unnecessary struggles." A long-term perspective helps us navigate challenges with clarity and resilience. Imagine a sailor navigating a storm. They cannot control the wind or the waves, but they can adjust their sails and steer their boat to safety. Greene emphasizes, adapting to the inevitable is the mark of a great strategist. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means acknowledging the circumstances and working within them to move forward. To implement this strategy, focus on what you can influence and let go of the rest. For instance, in a business environment, if a market shift disrupts your plans, channel your energy into adapting to the new reality rather than lamenting what's been lost. Use long-term thinking to maintain perspective during setbacks and build resilience by viewing challenges as part of a larger journey. Accepting the inevitable allows you to move forward with clarity and purpose, grounded in the bigger picture. The 33 Strategies of War offers a practical framework for navigating the challenges of life with clarity, resilience, and strategy. By understanding and applying these principles, readers can develop the skills to outmaneuver obstacles, anticipate conflicts, and achieve their goals with precision and confidence. Greene reminds us that life's battles are not only external, but often internal, requiring a balance of discipline, adaptability, and perspective. Ultimately, this book equips readers with the tools to face adversity, embrace complexity, and emerge stronger in the pursuit of their aspirations.